Welcome back. The market has just closed. These are the interim numbers. Safaricom, 3.52 million shares have been traded. Cooperative, 2.02 million shares. Equity 1.48, and here's the surprise of the day. Kenya Power, 655,000 shares traded. I mean, we need to get to the point where we are trading anything other than Safaricom and the banks, but it looks like there's really nothing there. It's like chasing for tomatoes and looking to find something else in the market. But that's on a side note. We are discussing the budget policy statement. With us in studio is Mr. Churchill Ogutu. What have we covered so far? The government is focusing on austerity measures, and they want to cut back on the budget expenditure for this next financial year that starts in 2020 from the second half of 2020. What have they done? The key thing they've done is they've decided perhaps let's not spend on development expenditure, which is a contradiction because the country is still trying to get into the middle income status, and it does feel that it needs the kind of infrastructure to be able to build a robust economy. So now no development infrastructure, the focus is the big four agenda. Question is, can we afford it? Is this a realistic budget, or should you expect to see less? Just before we took the break, the conclusion of the matter was this. The government could possibly take 1.5 trillion from the local economy. What does that mean for you and I if we are looking for credit? Remember, the rate cap has been repealed, but is there an appetite for the banks to lend to you, or is the demand from the government insatiable? Welcome back, Churchill.
Thank you.
We were just rounding up on this conversation of very good insights. 1.5 trillion is possibly what the government might need, meaning that its appetite for debt is insatiable and it could continue to crowd out the private sector. What are you saying then to businesses? Do they go then take debt now before the government starts on its next fiscal year? Or what are your businesses coming to you and asking for guidance on in as far as debt is concerned?
I think now on the micro level, now dealing with businesses, most of the banks right now are looking at it on a case-by-case basis rather. So yes, that the government is still borrowing on one hand. Of course, there's this crowding out of the private sector businesses, but still, there's still that crowding, there's still that case-based case that banks are starting to reprice loans with the rate cap having been repealed. So going forward, I think it will still be that, first of all, the business environment is not that conducive even for banks to start that massive scale lending to each and every Tom, Dick, Harry that comes to them here. Right. So they'll just be sticking down to on an individual basis per se.
All right.
Yeah.
Which tells me that possibly as a business, you might need to ramp up your cash reserves if you want to expand or scale your business in any way. Because at some point you will be competing with the government for credit. It could be available, it could be affordable, but it could not be available. So if there are business opportunities for you as either in the manufacturing sector or in the trade and goods and services sector, perhaps this is an opportunity for you to bulk up on your cash reserves. Is that maybe something that would make possible sense?
Yeah, that's quite sensible. Just to pile up on your reserves here, and just looking at it back to the point I raised earlier, because you find that in this kind of an environment, just looking at even on the macro statistics, in terms of is there an opportunity to expand your business in the current environment?
Exactly.
It's quite a less compelling case currently.
Okay.
So I find that yes, they might just have that reserves for a rainy day, but in terms of business expansion, I don't think that there's that solid case yet to start that expansion of businesses.
So buckle up.
Buckle up.
Yeah. Our graphics team will put out for us a chart that just shows the path of fiscal consolidation that Treasury is proposing, and it seems like that is a path that we'll probably have to take at a household level. We just have to buckle up and presumably spend less because the opportunities are not there. Now, moving over from the fiscal consolidation, let's take a look at the debt scenario. Now, the debt component of what the government needs to pay is not included in the numbers that we showed you earlier. But here are the numbers. Let's move over to the next chart with the help of our graphics team. Okay, so we wait for our graphics team to, yes, there are the numbers. You were telling us that the numbers that we saw earlier, they don't include the element of debt. What are we talking about this year in terms of principal repayments and interest repayments?
The previous slide had the debt repayment, but that one was just focusing on the external debt repayment. But there's that element of also the internal debt repayment. And just to give you some context, for the current financial year, it's around 123 billion. So if you may just go back to the previous screen, you can just see that the total is around 686 billion, and the addition of 123 billion is coming out to around 805 billion.
So 805 billion is the amount of debt which includes the principal and the interest that needs to be paid in the year 2020-2021.
That's the total for consolidated fund services. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, adding now the issue about the pensions.
Yes.
110 billion. Yeah. And starting in the current financial year, there's now what is called the mandatory contribution by civil servants towards their pensions. Because currently what's the case is the pension is now defined benefits, whereby now the government allocates a particular amount of money towards funding now pensions as they come due.
Yes.
But now they realize that even there's a pension liability, which is one of the key risks, which has also been flagged by the budget policy statement. As of 2014, the pension liability was around 990 billion. 990 billion. Unfunded liabilities. So that is quite a concern.
Yes.
So now, starting 2020, 1st of May, there's an act which was passed 8 years ago, Public Service Superannuation Scheme, which was assented in 2012. 8 years down the line, it hasn't come into law. So Treasury is expecting it to come into law by 1st of May, and it will now require civil servants to actually move towards the defined benefits, and on a monthly basis, they'll be contributing 7.5% of their monthly salary and government matching by 15%. So there's an allocation of 4.8 billion, at least for the 2 months in the current financial year, towards that fund.
Geez, it pays to be a civil servant in this economy.
It's quite sad, yeah, because if you consider that even the pensions that is being allocated is falling short of what they require, it's quite a sad state of affair.
Okay, so then you have the situation where you probably need to chuck out about 800 billion, give or take, for your debt redemptions in this particular year, and in the same statement, the government is saying, we are not too keen on external financing. We have the requisite resources in the domestic economy. It sounds too good to be true.
Yes, yeah. And if now that you mentioned that bit, consolidated fund services, for the sake of even our viewers, is something that even is not interrogated by National Assembly. So what will happen even as they do the budget process, they just give this figure, lump sum figure for consolidated fund services.
And then they don't break it down.
They don't even, it's broken down, but they don't debate about it. You see with other components of the budget, be it funding towards national government, be it funding towards county government, there's this hoggling around just to
and then there are also ceilings that are put saying you can't really go over and above this. But they're not, so what you're saying is there are no ceilings in terms of how much we can repay, and if we can repay in advance. Does that conversely mean that there are no conversations in terms of whether we can take local or foreign debt in the year, and is that under the strict purview of Treasury? Yeah,
in terms of now payments, in terms of now the debt obligations, that is what that conversation is now out of bounds for anyone. But now in terms of moving forward, what will be the best way to, in terms of getting new debts, that is what we can talk about. And just to mention, Treasury is looking at now refinancing even the expensive commercial financing. Now commercial financing at the syndicate and also include Eurobonds. There's a $234 million syndicate maturing next month, and ideally now in this context we could see, rather than refinancing that maturity with another syndicated loan, syndicate now having 4 or 5 banks coming together and giving money, but usually they are quite short term. They are LIBOR plus some other additional premium. You could find that rather than refinancing with another syndicate loan, they could go towards concessional loan. But here is the thing, because for concessional loans, one of it is it has a shorter interest rate, 1%.
Okay.
It has a longer grace period, 10 years, and then it has a longer maturity period, 25 years.
But who's willing to give that to us? Because the global economy is also crippling as well.
Which is a big, it's a big debate for us to see that realism in getting concessional funding. And mark you, for us to get a concessional financing, it means that there's a grant element. So ideally, the people who can give us concessional financing are now the bilateral countries, and you say that right now the global arena has caught a cold.
Okay, yes.
Leave alone now
so coronavirus
but that's
happened.
a metaphor. That's a metaphor that
yes.
Now there's a cold in the global environment. Yeah. So you find that it's quite hard, even in the short term, to actualize a concessional loan in short notice. So we're saying that realism is quite hard.
So we really will go back. I mean, Ghana has just come from raising $3 billion, and the demand for that paper was up to about $15 billion. It just tells us that at some point it will probably end up going back this same route.
And in the current financial year, we have a target of 200 billion. So far, we've not tapped into commercial financing.
Okay.
Already we have indications that we'll get a World Bank facility to the tune of 100 billion. Out of that, from that 200 billion, and there's a likelihood that we can get even from a Eurobond. Of course, there's been talks about we are getting a green bond Eurobond,
yes, green bond Eurobond. Well.
Yeah. But then the question is, are there some green projects to be financed from the green bond Eurobond, or we're just getting a green bond Eurobond just to pump into our coffers, but it's not going to
the
a green bond project.
And a green bond project being like modern housing,
environmentally
friendly housing, or
yes,
environmentally
or even
friendly
a waste disposal project. So those kind of things which are quite green projects. So I don't think that we have that kind of a pipeline in the short term. So by and large, we are saying that there's that possibility we can tap into Eurobond, and we say that if you look at $1 billion and you find that $1 billion, and you find that you are approaching fund managers, some of their clients, they have big portfolios. So $1 billion
it's
spread among 100 investors.
We need to get local fund managers there. But we have to land this conversation. We have to end this conversation. I want to ask you two final questions. So you have read the budget policy statement, and you have analyzed it as an economist, rather a senior economist at Genghis Capital. What's the two things that it means for somebody who's running a business? Is it higher taxes? Is it put more cash aside? Is it you won't access debt? What does it tell you, just in summary?
Buckle up. Towards
it's going to be a tough one.
It will be a tough one, yeah.
Okay.
Although sentiment is that we could have a softer punch, but I still feel that even as history tells us that with the budget policy statement, it's just the beginning.
Okay.
There's a whole 4-6 months ahead of us before it's actually realized into the official 2020-2021 budget process. So anything can happen.
Anything can happen. So buckle up. All right.
Just buckle up.
And then the final question: stocks, bonds, government bonds. Where should you then be looking to put your money, at least in this year, based on this statement?
I'm looking at it's quite but just balance
your portfolio.
Just balance your portfolio, because you can't say that you're going bonds. Because now
balance your portfolio.
Right now, in terms of the bonds, they are oversold, so it's a bit hard even to get at the moment. And also in stocks, there are idiosyncratic factors that could determine which stocks
and
I will not say right now go into this stock and then so people will come to my neck.
But I mean, that's a conversation we could have later on, just to understand the fixed income opportunity in light of this budget statement, as well as the equities opportunity. But thank you so much, as always, for gracing our show this afternoon. That was Mr. Churchill Ogutu, who is our senior economist at Genghis Capital. What have we had? Buckle up. What does buckle up mean? Stop spending. Put your cash aside. Stop buying too many tomatoes. You can do without some, on a light note. But you need to buckle up. You need to be to take on some of these austerity measures that the government of Kenya is taking. If there's unnecessary expenditure, you don't need to take it up. Trust me, you will need the money later on in the year. Thank you for joining us once again this afternoon. We hope that you will be able to join us at the same time tomorrow. Good afternoon.